this time, our next candidate for President of the United States, appearing via live satellite, is Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont.
Un aplauso para Bernie Sanders.
Senator Sanders, if you could start with your opening comments, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Domingo. And let me thank LULAC for years and years of extraordinary service to the people of our country. And in these very, very unprecedented times, when we have a president who is a demagogue, president who is demonizing the undocumented, a president who is a pathological liar, a president who is a racist, the important work that LULAC is doing is now more vital than at any other time. So I've been pleased to work with LULAC, look forward to working with you in the future. What our campaign is about overall is working people together from all over this country to not only defeat Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in the modern history of our country, but also to transform our economy and government so that it begins to represent all of our people, not just wealthy campaign contributors. And that means we're going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. We're going to demand that the wealthiest people in this country start paying their fair share of taxes. It means that we're going to make public colleges and universities tuition-free and cancel all student debt. And it means that health care is a human right, not a privilege. And we're going to pass a Medicare for all single-payer system. It means that we will deal with the existential crisis of climate change, take on the fossil fuel industry through a Green New Deal, create up to 20 million good-paying jobs as we transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And the message of our campaign is us, not me. We are all in this together to create a nation that works for all of us, not just the people on top. Thank you very much.
Senator Sanders, to get things started, you came out strong in both New Hampshire and Iowa. However, there's been a lot of criticism for these two states being the first in the nation because of the lack of diversity in these two. What do you think that this is a reflection of the results in the future in other states?
Well, let me tell you, we won the popular vote in Iowa. We won the primary in New Hampshire. Don't tell anybody. Keep it a big secret, but I think we're going to win in Nevada as well. I think we're doing well in South Carolina, in California, and on all the states in Super Tuesday. What we have done is put together an unprecedented grassroots movement. I mean, we have many, many, many hundreds of thousands of volunteers, people who are knocking on doors, people who are making phone calls. This is why we won in Iowa, why we won in New Hampshire, I think why we're going to win in Nevada as well. So I think we are on a path to win the Democratic nomination, to bring our people together, and to defeat Donald Trump.
Senator Sanders, it's been reported that over 1,500 refugee women have been raped and sexually abused while in the custody of Customs and Border Patrol. Recently, a 3-year-old girl was taken from her father because they could not prove the ID, and then that 3-year-old young girl, was molested while in the custody and care of the refugee asylum detention centers. And we have baby jails right now all over the border, all over the Southwest. If you were elected president, what would you do to bring those criminals to justice, and what would you do to reform the Border Patrol?
Well, for a start, we will radically change our policy on the border. We will not have federal agents doing the horrible things you just described. We will not have federal agents grabbing babies from the arms of their mothers. We will not have a situation where we're throwing children into cages. What we will do is create a humane border system which treats people with the respect and dignity that they do. And if there are any infractions on the part of government agents, we will hold them accountable. The behavior you have just described is absolutely unacceptable. It is disgraceful, and it will not happen in my administration.
And following up on that, you have called for the breakup of ICE and CBP. So what exactly would you do to secure the southern border of the United States of America?
Well, we have a lot of good technology out there. I mean, we need to protect the border. We need to do that in a way that does not build walls, that does not separate us from our neighbors. And I think using modern technology, having sufficient manpower to do the job will do it. But here is the bottom line. I mean, the bottom line is that America cannot simply build walls. We look foolish to the rest of the world. We look foolish to Mexico, and that is something that I will not do in my administration.
Senator Sanders, you said that you believe that we should have Medicare for all. And, but yesterday here in Nevada, the culinary union, at least the elements of it, came at you saying that you were going to take away their union pension, health care. How do you respond to unions thinking that you're going to take away the health care and we have Medicare for all?
Domingo, we are the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a human right. Meanwhile, we are spending twice as much per capita on health care as do the people in Canada, in Europe, and all around the world. And I think that after 100 years of talk about universal health care, now is the time to take on the greed of the drug companies and the insurance companies and guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child. And when we do that, we are going to improve the health care benefits for union workers, and that is why we have the support of a number of unions, including the Unite Here unions in California. And when we move toward Medicare for all, I want everybody to know there will be no premiums, no co-payments, no deductibles, no out-of-pocket expenses. And because we are taking on the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry, nobody in America will have to pay more than $200 a year for their prescription drugs. So when you have Medicare for all, if you lose your job, you have health care. If you want to start your own business, you have health care. And when you are in a union, your union negotiators will not have to spend half of their time trying to protect the health care benefits that you have. You can start talking about increasing wages and pensions and better working conditions. So I think the time is long overdue for us to be clear that health care is a human right for all, including, by the way, the undocumented in this country, and that we're going to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry and lower prescription drug prices.
Senator Sanders, Medicare for all is not something that some of the other candidates agree with. With that in mind, if your campaign were to not succeed, who would you consider backing?
Well, let me answer this question by telling you, I think our campaign is going to succeed. I think the people in this country are sick and tired of a government which represents the wealthy and the powerful, a government which is dominated by big money campaign contributors. We are building a unique workers' movement, and that includes Latinos and African Americans and whites and Asian Americans and Native Americans. We are doing exactly the opposite of what Trump is doing. He is trying to divide us up. We are bringing our people together to stand around an agenda that works for workers and that takes on the power of Wall Street and the drug companies and the insurance companies and the fossil fuel industry and the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex because we are going to end private prisons and detention centers in this country.
Senator Sanders, recently LULAC flew to Puerto Rico to help take supplies and food after the earthquakes that happened in the southern part. We were there, and FEMA's saying that there's only about 8,000 homeless people, but on the ground, the mayors were telling us there were 22,000 people that are homeless and have not received any help or support from FEMA. And this president appears to believe that Puerto Rico is not part of the United States, that is some other part of, I don't know who. But what would you do as president to help Puerto Rico recover from the hurricanes Irma and Maria? The island of Iquitos still does not have a working hospital. A young 17-year-old girl just died waiting at the airport to be taken to the mainland to a hospital. What would you do to help the people of Puerto Rico recover?
A whole lot. We are working with Colin Julene Cruz, who is one of our co-chairmen and a strong supporter. You know, when I talk about the racism of Donald Trump, I think his attitude toward Puerto Rico is a perfect example of this. Puerto Rico has not gotten the help from these terrible hurricanes that they have experienced in recent years. They are treated very differently than states like Texas or other states which have similar disasters. So first of all, we will treat the people of Puerto Rico as they should be treated, as citizens of the United States of America. Second of
all right, thank you, Senator Sanders. At this time, we're going to turn it over to David
very
Cruz.
serious economic problems even before these recent disasters. Their unemployment rate is very, very high. Their poverty rate is very high. They have not gotten the kind of Medicaid funding that they need. So to answer your question, Domingo, what we will also do is bring back democracy in Puerto Rico, which is now controlled by a control board of very powerful people who have taken away a lot of the democratic responsibilities that should exist in the legislature. We have documented what we call a Marshall Plan for Puerto Rico to rebuild that island, to make sure that the young people do not continue to leave, but come back and rebuild that beautiful island and make it the kind of community that it must become.
Thank you, Senator. Good to speak with you again, David Cruz, who is now bringing forth some residents from the state of Nevada who have questions for you tonight. Our first questioner, what is your name?
My name is Manuel. I am the Vice President for the Student Government here at CSN. There has been legislation passed that increasingly endangers people who choose, and many people do choose, to get into sex work, many of whom are LGBTQ and/or women. What is your plan to work with the sex worker community to not only legalize and regulate sex work, but to make it safer for all women and our LGBTQ community to participate?
Well, we will do everything that we can to make sure that sex workers are treated with respect, that they are not harassed, that they are not murdered, that they are not beaten. The question of legalizing sex work is something that we are looking at, but we have not yet reached the conclusion. I want to hear from a whole lot of people to help me reach the best conclusion that we can.
Thank you, Senator. Our next questioner, your name, please.
Yes, Senator. Good evening. My name is James Humes, and I'm the proud owner of the only Latina African-American aviation company that I know of. Senator Sanders, you speak of diversity and equal opportunity. You want the Latino and the black vote, yet it is reported your campaign spends less than 5% contracting minority business. Senator, why is that, and what will you do to correct it? Thank you.
I'm not sure. I honestly don't know the veracity of that statement that you made. What I do know is that some 40% of the staff of our campaign are minority, including many Latinos, African Americans, Asians, Native Americans. We are going out of our way not only to reach out to the minority communities all over the country, and I would hope and expect the minority businesses as well. But we are also hiring a significant number of minority people. The second point is, as President of the United States, what we will demand is having purchasing practices in the federal government which reach out to minority communities, big time. There is no question right now, but that minority communities are not getting the kind of contracts that they deserve, and that is something that certainly will be changed in my administration.
Your question, please speak loudly.
Yeah, so Cynthia Cermeño Moore from Las Vegas with Moms Clean Air Force and Eco Madres. I have lived here in Las Vegas my entire life, and I'm raising my 2.5-year-old son. I've seen how the city has grown dramatically throughout the years, and with that, Las Vegas is the fastest warming city in the country, and due to our poor air quality, we have one of the highest rates of asthma here in this city. Specifically more so in communities of color. As president, on day one of your presidency, what would you do to address climate change, and how would you do it in a way that it would be inclusive of all communities, including communities of color?
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that terribly important question. I am proud to tell you that our campaign has introduced the most comprehensive climate change proposal ever introduced by any federal candidate. It is based on the principles of the Green New Deal, and what it will do is move as quickly as humanly possible to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energies like wind, solar, and geothermal. Here is what is really scary. We have a president of the United States who not only does not realize or acknowledge the reality of climate change, his policies are making it worse. What I will do on day one is make sure that the United States Congress understands that climate change is a national emergency. Because what the scientists are telling us, if we do not move aggressively in the next 8 or 9 years, the damages that climate change will do to our country and the world, and I'm talking about rising sea levels, more drought, more extreme weather disturbances, the acidification of the ocean. We are talking about massive climate refugee problems where people can no longer stay in their homes around the world because there's no clean water or land to grow their crops. So you're looking at a candidate and someone who, if elected president, will move forward aggressively to transform our energy system and reach out to people all over the world. Because this is not an American issue, this is a global issue. And we've got to involve China and Russia and India and Pakistan, countries all over the world. And by the way, in the proposal that we have introduced, we have billions and billions of dollars set aside for communities of color, because we understand time and time again, it is lower income communities and communities of color who are hit hardest by pollution, who are hit hardest by diseases associated with environmental degradation like asthma. So I think that we are facing as a nation and as a world an existential crisis in terms of climate change, and you are looking at the presidential candidate who will most aggressively transform our energy system and make sure that we have a planet and a country in which our kids will be living in a world that is healthy and habitable.
Thank you, Senator. Our next questioner.
Good evening, Senator. My name is Austerberto Hernandez. I have lived in Las Vegas since I was just a kid. My question for you is regarding Puerto Rico. So you mentioned a moment ago how we owe the citizens of Puerto Rico, a multitude of, of service that isn't usually provided to them as would be provided to other American citizens. What is your stance on statehood for Puerto Rico? And if that is your stance, how would you work with your administration in the first few days to make sure that that becomes the reality?
Well, as you know, the people of that decision has got to be made by the people of Puerto Rico, not by me or not by anybody else. And in Puerto Rico, there are differences of opinion. Some people want statehood. Some people want independence. Some people want to kind of make some changes to the relationship that now exists. That is a decision for the people of Puerto Rico. But I will tell you this. We will support a binding resolution so that the people of Puerto Rico can make their own decisions. And if they want to vote and if they want to go forward with statehood, that is certainly something that I will support.
Thank you, Senator. Our next questioner, yes, your name.
Jane Sharp, I live in Henderson, Nevada. Senator Sanders, with so many potential candidates this year, if selected as the candidate, how will you unite the party and convince those that supported a different candidate to come out and vote for you? This year, the Democrat supporters seem quite divided by age, by people of color, and gender. There will be disappointed followers. How to unite behind one candidate?
Well, thank you very much for that important question. And let me repeat to you what I think I say every single day. Obviously, I hope that I am the nominee, and I hope that I have the privilege of defeating Donald Trump. But what I have said from day one in this campaign, and I think I speak for all of the other Democratic candidates, is that no matter who wins the nomination, all of us are going to go forward together to unite our supporters and make sure that Donald Trump is a one-term president. End of discussion.
Thank you, Senator. Your next question, please.
My name is Rosanna, and I live here in Las Vegas. My question for you, Senator, is regarding the welfare programs. What is your position to fix the system, and what is your plan to provide employment opportunities to the welfare recipients to stop the generational abuse of this program?
Good, very good question. There is an enormous amount of very, very important work to be done in this country. When we move forward, for example, with Medicare for all, we're going to need more doctors, more nurses, more paramedics, more healthcare professionals. When we rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, our roads and our bridges and our water systems and our wastewater plants, we are going to need millions of workers to be involved in creating an America that is efficient and productive because of our infrastructure. I talked a moment ago about the need to transform our energy system. What the Green New Deal is about is creating up to 20 million good-paying union jobs as we retrofit our older buildings, as we transform our transportation system, as we make major changes in agriculture, and as we do all of the things that we have got to do to combat climate change. So what I believe is there should be a guaranteed federal jobs program. If you are capable of working, there should be a decent paying job for you. There should be job training to make sure you can get that job, education available to you so that you have the skills to do that work. But there is so much work that has to be done, from infrastructure to childcare to education. There are more than enough jobs for our people. Let's put them to work at good wages.
Thank you, Senator. Our next guest.
Good evening, Senator Sanders. Thank you for appearing before us. My name is Adrian Havis. I'm a professor here at CSN, North Las Vegas. I'm the president of the Faculty Alliance, the Nevada Faculty Alliance, representing faculty throughout the state. We've been trying to get a contract here at CSN for 3 years. It's been quite difficult in our negotiations. What do you intend to do for working people, blue-collar, white-collar, union members, should you be elected? Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, as somebody who has probably the strongest lifetime pro-union, pro-worker voting record in the United States Congress, the need to grow the trade union movement is a very, very high priority for me. If we are going to grow the middle class in this country, if we're going to have decent wages, see wages go up for our workers, we need workers to have the opportunity to come into unions. There are now millions of workers in this country who want to join a union, but like you and your colleagues are being prevented from doing so, often by illegal actions on the part of their employer. We have introduced comprehensive labor law reform. It's called the Workplace Democracy Act. And I will tell you briefly what it says. It says that if 50% of the workers in a bargaining unit plus one sign a card, they will have a union. And if the employer refuses to negotiate a first contract, that employer will be severely penalized. Our legislation also does away with Section 14B of the Taft-Hartley Act, which allows for so-called right-to-work states, provides you right to work for less states. So to answer your question, we believe that if and when our legislation becomes law, we can double the number of workers in America in unions in a 4-year period. And that will be extraordinary. That will mean workers will then have the opportunity to sit down and negotiate for decent contracts, decent working conditions. One of the great economic crises that we are facing today is that unemployment is reasonably low. But number one, almost all new income and wages are going to the people on top. Most of the new jobs being created are low-wage jobs, jobs that do not provide enough income for people to live decent lives on.
Thank you,
So
Senator.
we believe it's imperative that we grow the trade union movement. We have legislation to do that. And good luck to you on your organizing efforts.
We have about 1 minute left, and this young lady has a very important question.
Hi, Senator Sanders. My name is Clarissa Perez, and I'm 18 years old. And as a young supporter of you, what words of support do you have for young people like me who support you but get ridiculed for doing so? Could you give us any words of hope?
We have 1 minute,
I sure
Senator.
can. Well, first of all, Clarissa, thank you so much for your support. One of the interesting aspects of this campaign is that we have the support of so many young people all across this country. And I am enormously proud of that, Clarissa, because you guys are the future of America. And here is a promise that I make to you. Under our administration, young people will have far more say in policies than you have ever seen in the history of this country. You guys are the future, and it's imperative that we get your ideas about how we go forward in creating an economy that works for all. What should we do about education? How do we create the best child care system, the best educational system in the world? Your generation is deeply concerned about climate change. You're deeply concerned about racism and sexism and homophobia and xenophobia. Your generation is the generation with the energy that we need to help us old people transform this country and make it the nation we can become. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Bernie Sanders. We thank you.